Welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video. So today I got 7 great CGC 9.8s to buy with your stimulus money. Yeah, and I live in Canada, so I won't be getting a stimulus, but as good of an excuse as ever to talk about some great CGC 9.8. Sort of, most of these are going to be under that 1,400 US dollar. I guess the stimulus check is about that amount. So let's have a look here. First one up, it's an Amazing Spider-Man number 299. Yeah, I think still making the price range for the stimulus check price, although it's trending well, and it does make a lot of sense now, because I think Amazing Spider-Man 300 in the 9.8 really skyrocketed in price to like 4,000 to 5,000 there. And I made a video, it was about maybe 2 months ago, recommending 299 around $700 as like, that's a pretty good buy, given that, you know, Amazing Spider-Man 300 skyrocketed in price and they're kind of related books. So awesome Venom cameo in this one. It's a great cameo too. I think the downfall to this book is the cover is kind of probably McFarlane's worst cover of his whole Spider-Man run. I think I like 298's cover a lot better. I do have 298 in the CGC 9.8. First Todd McFarlane Spider-Man. That one's a pretty cool one. But 299 makes a lot of sense right now, and it's fitting that stimulus check budget. 868 CGC 9.8's in the blue label. So that's a little bit less than Amazing Spider-Man 300, although not nearly as popular of a book, as there's way more Amazing Spider-Man 300s graded. So the 9.8 ratio, though, 17.7% of all graded copies in the blue label are 9.8. So that's not too bad. It's the reason why this one's not, you know, $2,000 or $3,000 is because Amazing Spider-Man 300 has that like 5.5% of all graded copies are 9.8. This one, the lower the better, 17.7. Not too bad though for a late 80s book, to be honest. So prices saw one sell for $1,199.95 in the 9.8. That one was looking really good too. The colors really kind of stand out on this white cover. I noticed 9.8 collectors really, you know, paying up for ones that has nice colors. I think this one had a nice centering and a nice color for $1,199.95. That's probably near the higher end of the range. I think right around 1,000 still doable in this one. It's a sweet Venom cameo, and I mean, I wish the cover was better, to be honest. It wouldn't even have to have Venom on the cover, just a better, you know, more eye-appealing cover, I think. But one you want to consider that's within that 1,400 budget, I guess. All right, next one is one I do have, luckily. An Ultimate Follow 4 in the second print, CGC 9.8. Definitely one you want to consider. A similar story with 299, where the first print of Ultimate Follow 4 had went in auction in the 9.8 for like $3,150 or something like that. And that seems pretty absurd. So the second printing, you know, just from a value perspective, is not nearly as expensive. We'll get into the prices here, but this one's a little bit more lower printed as well. A lot of people like the cover on this. I really love the cover on this one. You can kind of, you know, you see who the new Spider-Man is, which is, you know, cool little tweak of the first print cover, I think. Yeah, low printed too. A lot of people say this is way more low printed than the first print Ultimate Fallout 4. So there's a 647 9.8s. In the blue label. 44.8% of all graded copies are 9.8. So the relative rarity isn't close to the first print, which might explain the price difference a little bit. The first print one, it's like 28% of all graded copies are 9.8s or something like that. So 44.8%, not bad for a modern book. Like less than half of them are 9.8s that are sent to CGC in the blue label. So prices, $629.95 I saw one sell for, and $700, another one on the completed listings. I think most, like right in the last week or two, are kind of going for that 700. You might do well to get it closer to 600 right now, given that these Ultimate Follow 4 books are really hot. But yeah, first new Spider-Man, a little bit more affordable version. You know, it's kind of a modern you want to have. I do really like the first print because it is a good 9.8. It has that nice relative rarity in the 9.8 in the first print. But the second print, such a good alternative. Hopefully around 700, I think. Makes sense with some stimulus cash, maybe. All right, DC Comics presents number 47, the next one. Yeah, this is just one of the great DC covers, I think, almost of all time, and definitely of the 80s. And first appearance of He-Man and Skeletor. There's a big cult. I could have put this one on like our cult followed niche video that I did a couple weeks ago. Big cult of following for He-Man and Skeletor and the whole Masters of the Universe cartoon that was, I think, in maybe the late 70s, early 80s. Before my time a little bit. I've just grown to love this one as a great eye-appealing cover. I love like lots of colors. And then when you get a first appearance with like them looking awesome on the cover, like that's almost just, you know, a 9.8 to want for sure. And I've recommended this one. I did make a video about it, as this comic's going to be the next one to go over $1,000 in price kind of thing. And that was maybe about 6 months ago. So it's a great one that I've loved. 246 9.8s in the blue label. A 1 of 246 for first He-Man and Skeletor with a great cover in the top grade is, I think, awesome. 17.1%, the 9.8 percentage. Not too bad. You maybe like to see it a bit lower, but still not keeping the prices down in this one. Yeah, so a few sales here. The market's heating up. The most recent one was $2,000. Yeah, this one hit the $2,000 level. If you look back maybe even a month or two, 1,550 on this one. There's only 246 of them, so you actually don't see this one too much. The newsstands of this one are really a little bit more in price than the 9.8, so I think over 2,000 probably for DC Comics Presents 47 in the newsstand. But I think if you can get the direct for 1,500, one of those 246 in the 9.8, that's a pretty great buy right now. And it's sort of, this is the one that was getting a little bit over the stimulus check price, unfortunately, but one that is probably worth it to, if you have an extra 200 on top of your check to grab. All right, next one's one I got too. An Incredible Hulk 271. Oh, this one looks like it might fall. Don't want that to happen. Incredible Hulk 271 though. First comic book appearance of Rocket Raccoon, who's probably like the most obvious well-known member of Guardians of the Galaxy, I think. And yeah, this book's it's trended well in price. I'm lucky enough to have a newsstand copy. I bought it, I think it was early last year. I bought this one for, it was like $550 to $600, I believe it was. And was lucky to get a nice looking newsstand copy, I think. And so we're in between the Guardians of the Galaxy movies right now, so this book kind of makes sense. And I think when that Volume 3 Guardians movie comes out, I'm sure this will heat up a little bit more. So now it's kind of the, you know, if you want this, if you're a big Guardians fan like me, it's kind of the time to think about buying it. And other Guardians of the Galaxy books, to be honest. 376 9.8s. In the blue label, 12.4% of all graded copies are CGC 9.8. So a low teens 9.8 ratio is awesome for a book like this. And seeing one in the direct sell for $1,499. This is one where occasionally you don't see too many of them looking great, like perfectly centered. There's only 376 in the 9.8. So, you know, a nice centered one. Now they're right around 1,500. I think the newsstand, this was a direct 1,500 here. So I think the newsstand's probably pushing 2,000 now, given where the market has gone. And there's only 376 of these, let alone, you know, the more rare newsstand, which I think for this age of book, 1982, actually directs, I'm pretty sure, were more rare than the newsstand as far as print run. But what 9.8 collectors focus on is that the newsstands were likely held by like convenience store people and, you know, not comic shop owners that are direct editions, like, so at the grocery store by a stock boy or something, doesn't know anything about comics, and you know they're basically harder to find in super high grade 9.8. So newsstands still get a premium, even though directs are maybe more rare during this period. Yeah. So I think you do well right around 1,500 for a nice direct in Incredible Hulk 271 right now, and maybe kind of pushing the stimulus check budget with that one a bit, but all these are just kind of worth it, I think. You know, to maybe go the extra 100 or 200 or 300 bucks and get the deal done. Okay, next one here though is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures #1 in the CGC 9.8. I got this one in the Canadian price variant 9.8, a signed one, a really kind of a one-of-a-kind book, lucky to have it. But we'll just focus on the blue label one in the normal price variant, a little bit more affordable, just making the budget range, I think, here for the stimulus check. There's 215 of this one in the 9.8. You know, this one's really grown in popularity since I've started collecting in the last 2 years. This one in the 9.8, when I was getting into things, you could have bought one for 150 bucks. Now the prices are ridiculous, pretty much. It's almost 10 times its value. So there's 215 in the 9.8. I think more will become graded. You know, I could see this book maybe having 400 or 500 in the next, 5 years of, becoming graded. 34.8% of all graded copies are 9.8. So this is just the normal price variant. Yeah, the US price version. So in the 9.8, seeing a couple sell, it's come such a long way given where I just said. They were selling $1,400 and $1,450 in the 9.8 just for the normal version. I think the Canadian price variants are you know, I think maybe 3 months ago they were kind of around that price, but the Canadian price variants now I think are $2,000 and over. So this book's come a long way, but the reason I like it is because it was underappreciated for being the first appearance of the 4-colored bandana Ninja Turtles, which kind of stuck, and that's how I knew the Ninja Turtles growing up as a kid. Like, I just thought they always had 4-colored bandanas until you get into comic books more, and they were black and white, I think, at the beginning, yeah, and then they were meant to just be all red bandanas, but they went with the 4 colors to differentiate them for kids, and this is the first time they got the 4-colored bandanas in print. I always liked it for that, and I think it's getting the appreciation now. Right around that, if you can swing it around the $1,400 mark, I think is still a decent one. Like, yeah, the market, it's hard for me to recommend these knowing how far they came, but that's where the market is right now. Okay, next one here. Spawn #1 in the newsstand. For sure, a great one you want to think about. The more rare version of Spawn #1 in the newsstand version here, just with the UPC code box. Because, Spawn, there's a lot of potential there. There's a huge fan base. Spawn came out when comic books were their most popular in the early 90s. So, a new Spawn movie, I think the values of this book would do really good with that. And if not, there's already a huge cult of following of Spawn fans out there that really like this one. And super nostalgic cover. Spawn #1 is just a book I remember so much from, when I was a kid. They don't differentiate the newsstands on the census in the CGC 9.8. There's 6,750 9.8s in the blue label. That's why I recommend the newsstand, because there's so many. There was like 1.6 million Spawn 1s ever printed. Most of them being direct, pretty much. So in the newsstand, if you take like 5% of that 6,750, it comes out to like 310 or 320 or something like that. And that's an estimate of the newsstands in the 9.8, 310 or 320 of them. Spawn #1 newsstand, first appearance of Spawn, more rare version of Spawn #1. It's almost like you're buying in here to like a hero before some of possible really popular movies could come out. So it's like buying, Iron Man first appearance or something like that before all the MCU movies came out, because I think a Spawn movie would just increase the popularity of Spawn so much, and the interest in this book specifically, and a lot of other Spawn keys like Spawn Black and White and Malibu Sun 13 probably too, but this one's at the top of my list. I kind of want one more. I've always been on the record as wanting to get another one, but I just haven't been aggressive enough lately. But I do got one. I got one in the raw too. But yeah, I think with Spawn #1 is that there's that potential there that maybe in the next 10 years, 2 or 3 Spawn movies come out that are just awesome, and the popularity of this book really takes off, and the potential's there. I think a big brand Spawn is. It's not, and maybe another comparison, it's like buying a Star Wars #1, before The Mandalorian came out and hit so huge, and now that I bought mine for $925, now it's $4,500, and one went for over $5,000 in the Star Wars #1 9.8 on eBay the other day. So I think Spawn #1, you get in there right now, and then maybe some pop culture event happens in the next 5 or 10 years. Spawn gets really popular. This one's like 2,000 at least in the 9.8. All right, last one here. One I do got. A Batman The Dark Knight Returns. Yeah, and I think any Batman key issue right now is a pretty decent buy getting into the Batman movie, which I think is going to be a huge hit. And I think now is a sort of good lull to possibly think of buying Batman keys, because we're kind of in between the trailer. Yeah, that first trailer came out. So a lot of Batman keys kind of heated up off the back of that. Some of the Court of Owl keys in Batman New 52 really heated up. I think now those are kind of lulling, and maybe this one, just all Batman keys in general. But this is kind of the top of the barrel, though, I think, for 1980s Batman books. And, more Batman popularity is going to be good for this one, even though, yeah, the Batman movie is a younger Batman. So I could have brought out like Batman 404. That's one that's being a little more speculated on, Batman Year 1, Part 1, because it's a younger Batman. Batman The Dark Knight Returns is an older Batman, but still should do well if Batman popularity does well. 564 9.8s. So a 1 of 564 9.8, for a great Batman collector item is awesome, I think, in one of the more popular Batman books of the 80s. 17.4% of all graded copies are CGC 9.8, so that's not too bad at all, especially for a DC book. And, it's looking pretty good on the census with a 1 of 564, 17.4%, 9.8 ratio. So this one has, I think, pretty much settled over the $1,000 mark. And I think for good reason, even at that price with like Ultimate Fallout 4 now selling for over $3,000 and that Ninja Turtles Adventures book, like things like that, I think it definitely deserves to be about one sold for $1,199.99. Saw another one sell for $1,380 too. Yeah, and that's kind of getting near, I think, where pretty much the all-time high in this book has been, you know. But I think if the Batman comes out, people start thinking about all the classic Batman key issues to want to buy. This is right up there on that list. And there's a huge cult of fans for Dark Knight Returns and Frank Miller in general. Just one you want. And yeah, I think over $1,500, near $2,000 when the Batman comes out. You know, everyone's loving Batman, I think is completely doable in this book. And right now, maybe you get it for $1,200 in the 9.8. Definitely, hopefully closer to $1,200 in the 9.8. All right, so that's about it here. Just you know, some kind of bread and butter ideas here for that $1,400-ish price. Most of them a little bit under, but some a little bit over too. But you know, I've talked about some of these are my favorites, and I've talked about them before, and certainly it feels weird to, you know, want to recommend a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures #1 in the 9.8 for $1,400 when they were literally $150 in the 9.8 2 years ago, when I was like sort of discovering that book and like, wow, I want that one. They were like $125, $150 in the 9.8. So gives you an idea how far the market has come, but the reasons are the same for it being awesome, especially with that Ninja Turtles Adventures books. And that's the thing about all these books. Like, first cameo Venom, can't go wrong. Second print of Ultimate Fallout 4, you know, the first new Spider-Man, can't go wrong there. That He-Man and Skeletor cover, like, so classic and amazing. Yeah, these are just great ones to, hopefully you can get them, most of them for under that $1,400 stimulus check. All right, team, thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate all the support, and I'll see you on the next one.